Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast. I think it's episode 75, I believe.
Okay.
So, we're gonna kind of run through some stuff. It's a little bit of a struggle for topics because this is literally the most dead period in the sports calendar. Excluding like summertime when there's no before football starts.
Yeah, I mean, there's baseball spring training, but who the hell wants to talk about that? Oddly enough, as I was before the podcast started, I was in Facebook, and someone posted something about the new. What do you guys think of the new rule changes in baseball? Where like they got rid of the shift, and then like they have
the pitch clock.
And some jackwagon commented on the post. It's like, baseball is a pastoral, leisurely game. If you're in a hurry, it's not the game for you. I'm like, okay. Yeah, it was a pastoral leisurely game in the 1800s, dude. We got a lot of stuff going on. Like, move it along.
No, that's a good thing to talk about. Listen, I don't mind, we're okay with a leisurely pace. We're not okay with unnecessary delays. So we're there for 4 hours. Like that's the problem. Like it's not, you gotta make the stuff happen in the game. And not enough stuff is happening, and the batters have taken this stepping out of the box and all of this crap, way too far. I don't think the pitchers are the problem. I think that the pitchers want to move fast. They want to, I do think it does make it kind of difficult in high leverage situations, but I think it's good that baseball's trying something.
Yeah.
The fact that they're trying to do something is an improvement. Because
I just get here's the thing for baseball purists or whatever. Like, look, okay, get in the batter's box and try to get on base, please. Okay, that's what you're up there to do. Quit screwing around, calling timeouts. Stay in there and try to get a hit. And let me tell you something: if you think you need all this time to be able to get a hit, then you know what? Do a different job. Okay, I've had this idea for a while. They need to make minor league baseball smaller. Okay, if you get up there and you can't play, do something else. Okay, get out of here. Because I only want to see the guys who can really play. I don't want to see a guy like, I had to spend 7 years in the minor leagues. It's like, you know what? Do something else. Okay, really, I only want the guys who are really good. Okay, because they don't do that. They don't really do that in other sports. You don't really. I guess you have the G League and the NBA, but you don't have in the NFL, they don't really have a minor league. It's like it's college football, and then if you can't hack it in the NFL, well, you can go play. I don't know. You can go play in Canada, or you can play in the XFL or something. I don't know what to tell you. So it's just we got stuff to do. Throw the pitch, try to get a hit, or get a walk, whatever. But hurry it up, because I understand when baseball people try to go, it's a thinking man's game and all this other stuff. I don't care. I want to see stuff happen.
Well, that used to be true, but now they've bastardized the game anyway. The thinking man's thing is gone. All they care about is hitting home runs, or you hit home runs,
exactly.
You strike out, you throw 100 miles an hour. So they've completely ruined. If they thought that's what the game was, though the baseball teams don't think that way.
Yeah,
they've completely screwed it up. So yeah, I think I think the most. I think it's fun to be at any sporting event, but I think the most fun are probably hockey and basketball. And then I think baseball it's kind of fun to just go to the game, hang out, drink some beers, talk to people. I think baseball is more of a social event. I went to when last August I was in Iowa, and we went to a minor league baseball game, and it was I think it was a single A team, and it was a Friday night, and the place was packed. There were people all over the place hanging out. Everybody's having a good time. The baseball wasn't that great, but it didn't matter. So that's what I kind of think baseball. That's what kind of think baseball is. So that's what I. So I'm
the
glad
other problem
that
is the games. There's no clock on the games, and playoff games start at 8:00 at night, and it's like, okay, I have no idea what kind of commitment I'm in for with this. I know the games have been getting a little bit shorter, but it's just. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's important to speed the games up. No, we don't need to be going ultra fast in baseball games. That's not what we're asking. We're asking, could you throw a pitch in the next 15 seconds?
Yeah. Like, that's what you're there
That's
to
it.
do. Like, I don't want to see you grabbing your crotch and stretching out and, just, throw the ball and try to hit the ball. Like, please, let's move it along.
All right. So the topic we were talking about just before we got on here was kind of interesting. So Clark had not seen The Godfather Part 2 all the way through. So did you? So first of all, you saw it all the way through. So what are your thoughts on the movie? I mean, obviously, I don't know that it changes much from how you've seen it in the past. But what did you learn anything that you didn't know in the past? Does it put stuff together for you?
No. I mean, I will say that I wish I had seen this like, I don't know, 20 years ago, because it's part of pop culture. So then I've heard parts of it referred to in pop culture. So then I already sort of know, so that kind of ruins some things, So but I can't go back and unsee that stuff. So, I'm trying to think if I learned anything. I mean, not really. I mean, I didn't know all the backstory of what happens with, why Fredo tried to kill Michael. Like, I didn't know all that stuff, and then I kind of see, okay, I'm like, all right, okay. And then, like, I had seen some other parts, but I wasn't exactly sure of what was going on. But I don't know. Again, I like the first one better. I like the what happens in there and kind of the arc of the different characters. And this one, I was just kind of like, I didn't feel like much of. I mean, stuff happened obviously, but I didn't feel like there was much of a change with Michael Corleone. He was just kind of the same. He was just kind of the same dude throughout the whole thing. And it didn't feel like he learned anything, in the first Godfather, I mean, the change from the beginning of the movie to the end, when, he's a soldier coming back from World War II, and now he's the Godfather, that's a huge deal. So,
well, what I would say, well, right, and what I would say to that is, no, he just gets worse. Like, right. So he kills his brother-in-law, right? Cause he's, trying to have him killed. Right. And then in the second one, they kill the hooker, right? To frame the senator or whatever. And then they and then he kills his own brother. And the whole time, like, the whole point is to you're trying to they don't tell you what's going to happen or he doesn't really tell you what he's thinking necessarily all the time. So you're going through the movie, you're watching the movie going, nah, I mean, come on. Was it really Fredo? Oh, well, it was Fredo. Oh, geez. And then when Fredo gives it away when they're in Cuba and they're at the restaurant or whatever, and he gives it away, and then you're like, oh yeah, but he's not going to kill him. And then at the end, he does kill him. So, what I would say is that, he just continues to get worse and worse. And it's a great American tragedy. It's a great, human tragedy story, which is a lot of what these shows and series that we like. That's what they are. Breaking Bad is just a gigantic tragedy. And so, I think that, I think what I find interesting is kind of the little subtle things here and there where he sets up, he goes to see Hyman Roth and kind of acts like he's going to be friends with him when he really isn't,
Right.
And then they try to kill Frankie, Frankie Five Angels, and that doesn't quite work out. So he's kind of playing it all. So it's kind of like a mastermind, like the logo of The Godfather with the marionette strings. It's very appropriate to what the show is, and what I would say.
I guess you could say it's just kind of sad. I guess it's sad what happens to Michael. Like, but then you're watching that juxtaposed with showing Vito, getting all his stuff set up, and how it's like, it's more, he's with his family. But with Michael, his family is just, he's pushed his sister away, he's pushed his brother away, he pushes his wife away, he pushes his kids away, and so it's basically just him at the end, just alone, sitting outside by himself, I don't know, I did kind of think it was the stuff with Robert Duvall where he's like, Michael, why are you attacking me? Like at the end, and then he goes to see the guy who's in jail, and he's like, how was it with the other, and he's sort of talking about that, and he's like, you know, if someone messed up, could you, you know, make up for it, or could you leave things be, or whatever? I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, you know, I mean, it's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad. I just, if I was to pick one, I would pick the first one.
Yeah, I mean, they describe this on Bill Simmons' podcast, The Rewatchables. I think he describes it very well when he says, part 2 is the better movie, but part 1 is more rewatchable. So, you know, basically, like, part 1 has all of the I think it's just I don't want to say it's happier. It's not happier, but it's just it's a more fun depiction of what their, you know, what life was like, what went on with this family. So I completely understand that. I don't think you're alone in thinking that. But I think, you know, once I do think you have to watch part 2 a few times before you really grasp it. But that's the problem with these movies, is they've been watched and rewatched so many times and fought over, you know, all of those things. But I think, yeah, I think it's funny you bring that up, because I was just I have it on Blu-ray and I was just watching it the other day, and yeah, it's one of those movies like I could watch 100 times and watch 100 more, like, because I don't really think of it as like as one thing. I think of The Godfather as it's a collection of these scenes. You know, it's just like it's like a collection of short plays, kind of.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, I mean, you know, I'm glad I finally saw it. You know, because I kept meaning to see it, and I'd seen different parts of it. I'd seen I'd seen all the stuff with De Niro, all the stuff where he's Vito Corleone, like, you know, and that's pretty interesting. And then, you know, I'd seen different like I'd seen some of the beginning, but I wasn't exactly sure what was going on, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's a really well done movie. I mean, I like how they kind of, I feel like to me, the best part of the movie, really, like what I thought what they absolutely nailed was, because both movies start with there's a party, right?
Right.
You know, well, except for the second one starts with Vito Corleone in Sicily, whatever. But after that, when they show the more present day stuff, yeah, it starts with a party, and they sort of establish everything, right? Like they give a very good intro to everything. They do some exposition, and you sort of get kind of where everything's starting off from. And then the second one, they do a really great job of that. And then basically the end of that is Michael is dancing with Kay, and, you know, she's like, Michael, you said that you were the organization was going to be completely, you know, normal. And he's like, yeah, I know, I'm working on it. She's like, yeah, but it's been 7 years. And you're like, oh, it's been 7 years since the last movie. You're like, oh my God. But before that, everything else has been set up, like him and the senator. And then, well, actually, wait a minute. The beginning, that's not really the end of the first act of the movie. The end of the first act of the movie is the assassination attempt where the house gets shot up, you know. So yeah, but it's just that's a really great way to start a movie, where you basically have, you do the exposition, and then you have the catalyst for the entire rest of the movie, because the shooting thing, that's the catalyst for the rest of the movie. I mean, granted, he was going to go meet with Hyman Roth, whatever, but that kind of, you know, sets everything up, and yeah, it's a great way to start a movie.
Yeah, and the what I really like is there's always unanswered questions with The Godfather, because they don't tell you everything, right?
Yeah, no, they don't.
You don't know, like,
they'll kind of
who opened the drapes
from one scene to the next, and you're like, I feel like, because the whole thing with him in the before the U.S. Senate, I'm like, did they explain what, like, why is, you know? Now you figure it out as they're, you know, as the thing goes on, but you're like, why is this, you know, but it's fine. I mean, it works, but it is just kind of a different, you know, that was one of the things that I found, the first one I found a little hard to, like, I remember, like, the first couple times I saw it, I'm like, it feels like they're leaving stuff out. You know, that was kind of hard for me to kind of wrap my head around, because it felt like they would kind of cut around or something. And I'm like, why is, you know, but eventually I just think you figure it out. But
yeah, and you know, if you watch The Offer on Paramount Plus, it does a really good job of kind of showing how they get to certain to certain things and making the movie and all of that. I think they.
Well, the other thing, it's weird for me because I was, and I didn't notice this. Maybe I'll have to go back and watch the first Godfather again, but because before I even saw the first Godfather, I had seen a bunch of movies with Al Pacino, right? Al Pacino, like 1980s on. I had seen a bunch, probably even later than that, like 90s on. I had seen a bunch of movies with him, right? And so, but he's still, the funny thing is, even though he's much younger in the Godfather movies, he still has a lot of the same mannerisms. So there were some parts in Godfather 2 where I'm watching him and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's the Al Pacino. I've, just certain mannerisms and certain things that he would do, especially like, from like The Devil's Advocate, like some of the stuff he did in that movie, just some of his mannerisms, I was like, okay. And then I would watch the guy, I'm like, I see a few things here and there. Granted, it's a different character and he has to kind of play it differently, but,
Well, yeah, and it's funny, like in these movies, it's funny to watch him talk softly the entire time.
But when he yells, he sounds like Devil's Advocate or, whatever. It's or Scent of a Woman.
Right. So he doesn't go up to, 100. He doesn't dial it up to 100 very often.
Right.
It's only a couple of times in both movies that he actually does that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, we came on here to talk about a movie that's 50 years old. But
well, I mean, so what is 50? I mean, good movies are good movies. There's songs that are 50 years old that are really good.
Plus, this has affected so much of pop culture in general for the last 50 years. You can't, you realize how many things we can't, don't make sense if we don't have The Godfather.
I was watching, and this is again what I was talking about before. I was watching City Slickers Part 2 yesterday. Remember where John Lovitz plays Billy Crystal's brother, and he's always quoting lines from The Godfather?
He does the part, yeah.
Yeah, he does the part with Fredo. And so then I was kind of like, as I was watching that, because I hadn't seen that part before, when I'm watching that part, I'm smart. I can do things myself, and I'm just like, God, this part's kind of ruined for me because I heard the thing before. Like it's really well written, but I'm just like, God, it's kind of ruined it for me.
Well, I like when John Lovitz does the Hyman Roth speech. These two guys we used to grow up together and blah blah. That I think is pretty. It's pretty good because and you can tell in City Slickers you can tell it's a joke, like it's not serious, so it's completely different. But anyway, listen, one of the greatest movies of all time. I don't think it's a debate. I'm not gonna, I'm not one of these. I don't make lists. I'm not gonna tell you, But I look when I think of The Godfather, people either like it or you don't. That's it. You're either in on it and, you enjoyed it, or you're just completely, it's non-existent to you. And I found it kind of works that way with men and women. I feel like men generally like it. Women sometimes.
Yeah, women kind of get, if you think about it, it's a very man-centric movie, as a lot of movies have been for, a while. But I mean, basically, the women are just sort of sitting around while men go and do stuff.
Right. There's no strong female character in any.
I mean, I guess you could say Kay sort of is, but I don't know. That's just undermined by the whole thing where I'm like, why did you get back together with him when he clearly was becoming his father when he told you that he wasn't going to be his father, and then just think about this, Clark. So. He says, all right, I'll see, I'll get a message to you when I can, right? In the first movie. He kills both guys, has to go to Italy. He's gone for 5 years. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years. Comes back, he's home for a year. She has no idea where he is, blah, blah, blah. He gets out of a car, looks like Al Capone, right? Looks like he's got the hat on, looks like a full-fledged gangster, right? It's like the Jedi is now a master, right? Yeah. Gets out of the car, and she's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess we're getting married now. It's like, what?
Well, I just think, especially because that was the 50s, so I just feel like she would have been married already.
Right, exactly. It's not like you could wait around.
Yeah.
The idea that's the thing is like, no, I'm sorry. You and I, we know a lot of women. We're married to women. No woman is just like, sure, it's fine. Okay, so you married this other woman and then she got blown up in a car. Yeah, it's whatever.
Well, that's like, did you see Saturday Night Live last night?
No.
Okay. they did a skit with Woody Harrelson was the host. They did a skit where Woody Harrelson is a character in prison, and he's talking to his girlfriend at the through the glass with the phones or whatever.
Right.
And she's like, I'll wait 1,000 years for you, whatever. And the funny thing is that the deputies who are standing right behind him, they just start giving him feedback. They're like, it's like, I'll wait around forever for you. He's like, no, he's not. What are you talking about? She's like, she's not going to wait around 1,000 years for him. What are you kidding? No, she's going to go find somebody else. She's like, I saw her come in here and she was in a car with another man. Like, come on, It's kind of a funny skit. You should check it out. I'm not doing it justice, but it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I definitely.
But yeah, the point is, the woman's not going to wait around 5 years for you. Come on.
Yeah, listen. If you think about it, there's some flaws in The Godfather, but that's the biggest from a story perspective. That's the biggest one. It's kind of like, wait a minute, I feel like they just had, they had to make her the, that had to be the Diane Keaton part, but it's just kind of like, really? So
yeah.
And listen, don't watch Godfather 3. Just don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. Just it's they basically what they tried to do is they tried to they made it the problem was that they made it 15 years later, and they should have done it earlier. If they'd have done it within 5 years of the second one coming out, I feel like they would have done a good job. I just feel like everybody got completely lost of what it's supposed to be.
Well, I'll probably see it eventually, but what happens? Like, what's the? I know Andy Garcia's in it, and he plays Anthony or one of Michael Corleone's son.
No, he's not Anthony, but he's Sonny's son.
Okay.
Yeah, so they try to get this deal with. He tries to get involved with like the church, like the Vatican, and they try to get this. It's kind of weird. Like that's the one part. Like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like the business part of it was just like, why is this in here? They do it. So there's a lot of that stuff, and then everybody trying to take over the family. And then the kids are grown up. So him dealing with Diane Keaton is kind of funny because they've been divorced for a long time, and he's trying to convince his son that he should, go to law school, and the son wants to be an actor, and and so Andy Garcia is kind of central to it. He kind of becomes the Don in waiting, kind of like that. And so it's like they tried to, but it's basically like, oh, they're just trying to recreate, the past two movies, and you can see it. You can see it coming. It's like when they made the last three Star Wars movies, where Episode 7, it was basically like, all right, let's just replay the hits. That's kind of what they did with this movie. Now, that being said, Al Pacino is great in it. He's fantastic. Like it's a great performance. The problem is, the movie's not fantastic.
Right.
And Sofia Coppola plays his daughter, and she's not a good actor. So that kind of that makes it kind of difficult.
Right.
But hey, listen, you watch it, but it's like, it's night and day compared to the other two movies.
Yeah. All right, so do we want to talk about any sports? What do we want to? All
right, so let's move on. Moving on from our discussion of 50-year-old movies podcast. The one topic I had from this week was all the hand-wringing about the NBA All-Star Game. Look, the NBA All-Star Game wasn't good. It was basically a glorified pickup game, which, in my mind, that's kind of what I expect from an All-Star Game. In my entire life, the All-Star Game has basically been the same thing. All right, we're going to screw around for 3 quarters or 3.5 quarters, and then when 5 minutes to go in the game, when the game's as long as the game's relatively close, we're all going to try hard and try to win. For the last 5 minutes, we're going to play hard. That's my life with the All-Star Game. That's how it's been. And, this time, it was, it's a lot of guys taking half-court shots and a lot of, kind of guys fooling around and nobody playing any defense and guys going to the basket for easy dunks and all that. But that time in the fourth quarter where you thought, oh, they're going to try hard now for a few minutes, that never really happened because one team was just pretty far ahead of the other team. So there was no way that one side was going to catch up.
Right.
And then the next day everybody's like, "Oh, this is terrible. They need to cancel this. Why are we doing this? Like these guys should care more," and blah 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 blah. And my attitude is that people are doing revisionist history. I'm sorry, the All-Star Game's never mattered. It's never mattered. I've been watching it for 35 years. It's never been important. Don't try to tell me that it is, because it isn't. It was fun the whole point to me of the All-Star Weekend is you're trying to get kids and young people interested in the NBA. That's it. That's what the point of the entire weekend is. This isn't, we got to get the TV ratings to be better, because no, what you're trying to do is get these fans interested so that later on they'll remember what this was like, right? They'll be interested in the NBA, not only basketball, but actually watching the NBA. That to me is the point of the All-Star Game. No, I don't want to see these guys all be playing their asses off for the whole game. I think it's fine for this game to be just kind of just a fun thing to do with guys hanging out and playing like you would in your rec league and that kind of stuff. I think that's fun. I don't see why it's such a huge problem for everybody. And no, I don't think it needs to be changed. I don't think it needs to be fixed. We keep trying all these different things. None of it matters. We get the same game no matter what we do. So I think we should do the same thing. I like the draft before the game. I thought that was fun. I just think they need to speed it up a little bit. Like, it doesn't need to be this long drawn out thing. They need to, so they could do a better job with that. But overall, people, get over it. I don't understand this. This doesn't need to be fixed. This isn't a problem. It's just fine the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's basically, this is one of those topics that basically there's not much to talk about. So then they talk about this. And the funny thing is, with pretty much all All-Star games, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, with the Pro Bowl and the NFL, they were getting ratings. They actually didn't need to do anything. I know they changed it this year, but you didn't really need to do anything. So it's just people get upset at people. The media gets upset about it, or they tell you should be upset about it, and then people get upset about it, and then it becomes a thing on Twitter or something, and then people are talking about it, and it's it really doesn't matter. And yeah, there is like you're saying, revisionist history. That's come on, guys. You're acting like, oh, well, it used to be. No. Sometimes things did used to be a certain way, but in this case, you're just, I think you're kind of, you're imagining things. It's an All-Star game. It doesn't matter. It's an exhibition. I really don't care. I think the Saturday night stuff is still kind of fun, and that goes through. There's sometimes it won't be fun. Sometimes it is, whatever. Yeah, it's really not that big of a thing. It really isn't. I don't really care. I mean, I don't think we want to go to the extreme that baseball went to, where the All-Star Game determines home field advantage in the World Series, which was stupid from the beginning, and they're still doing it. I mean, I don't think you need it, because that's absolutely ridiculous. So, yeah, it's just one of those topics. People, they get upset about it, and it's people don't really care. I don't really care. I'm not upset about it. It's like when people complain about Baseball Hall of Fame voting. I don't really care. I mean, I don't really care. Most people don't really care. So,
yeah, I mean, look, I think there's something like Nick Wright has been making the argument that all we care about in terms of media, like sports talk type media, all we care about is who wins the championship. Like how, and we're basically we're only giving you credit if you win championships. And, we're so focused on that no wonder these guys don't care about the All-Star game. They don't care about the regular season. That's a fair point,
but about the All-Star game, I don't really think that plays into it. I'm not really going to get upset that they don't care about winning the All-Star game.
Yeah, I think, I think it's, like we've said, it's always been this way. I do think that, the way that players act is affected by the fact that if you look at Kevin Durant's career, and it's really a shame, but Kevin Durant's career has basically been shaped and affected by a bunch of idiots' opinions about what he should or shouldn't do. And it's really freaking dumb. Like it really, really bothers me that Durant is now. First of all, this is Kevin Durant's issue. He shouldn't be listening to everybody else. He should be doing what makes him happy and not be worried about any of this other crap. But it bugs the hell out of me that he goes to the Warriors and he gets absolutely ripped for it. He wins the championship and people don't want to give him credit for it. Okay, so then he's like, "No, I'm going to go to this other team," and then he gets criticized for that. When basically the whole entire media was telling him that's what you should do. And none of the old players, Charles Barkley and all those guys, ever want to give him credit for anything. So, so it's kind of it's really stupid. It really bothers me that, Kevin Durant's career has been, maybe he won't win as many championships as I think he should, but I just think it sucks that, that's the way that this is treated.
Yeah. That's a larger issue, and that's something I've thought for a while. Just to give you an example, when the Warriors went 73-9, okay, that mattered. That was an accomplishment. And people go, "Oh, they didn't win the championship." I don't care. Okay, they went 73-9. That was unbelievable. You're like, "Oh, well, they still lost the championship." Okay, they got up 3-1. Draymond Green's dumbass got suspended. Okay. In Game 7, it was tied at 89 with 2 minutes to go. Okay, LeBron made an incredible block. Kyrie Irving made a really good shot. Okay, and so I'm supposed to go, "Oh, well, you winning 73 games in the regular season doesn't matter." No, it matters. That's a big deal. The other thing I don't understand, we do this with all sports, but okay, if the regular season doesn't matter, why do we give quarterbacks credit for winning MVPs? Because that's right. A regular season award, So I don't, if you're going to say, well, it doesn't matter because they didn't go and win the championship. Well, okay, how many MVPs are you going to invalidate? Brady's won MVPs and not won the championship. Peyton Manning won MVPs and didn't win the championship. There's been NBA players who win an MVP and don't win the championship. It doesn't invalidate what they did during the regular season. Is the regular season different from the playoffs? Yes. That's why sometimes that happens, where you have great regular season success and you can't get it done in the tournament. But yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that now again, players are free to do what they want. If they want to sit out games, do load management, whatever. But I think that if we were more appreciative of what players did just on all the games they played, just more appreciative of what they accomplished, I think we would be better served. Dan Marino didn't win the Super Bowl, but he made the Hall of Fame. And a lot of that, he did have some playoff success. He didn't make it to he only made it to the Super Bowl once, and there were some games he lost where maybe you could say maybe he should have won that game, but he still had incredible success. Peyton Manning, he only won one Super Bowl with the Colts, but he made it to 2, and he had tons of success throughout that time. He won so many games, so many divisions. He won a bunch of MVPs, and he had some close playoff losses. I'm not going to crush the guy for that. I just think we've gotten to this thing now where we're just going, just count the rings. Not really. You can't really do that. That's not, even in basketball, you can't really do that. That's why I think if people, and I said this before, maybe I still think this, but if you want to say LeBron's the greatest player of all time and he finishes his career with 4 championships, you can say that. And people go, "Oh, well, he doesn't have 6. It's like Jordan, so what? Why are we the things that go into winning a championship, so much of it is random. Not all of it, but so much of it is just random based on who got injured, what matchups did you have to deal with, how did, some of the players around you play in the big games,
Yeah, just to jump off on, take the MVP part of that discussion, this year it's going to be a real debate as far as the NBA goes, because if Jokic wins, it'll be his 3rd straight MVP.
Yeah.
And apparently that's supposed to be, sacred. You can't get 3 straight MVPs unless you're one of the greatest players of all time, even though, especially in the last, 10 years, we know what the MVP is. It's a regular season award right? It has nothing to do with who's the best player in the league, So it's like we were, watching Colin Cowherd's show from this week, and Nick Wright was filling in, and he's basically complaining that, well, Jokic isn't the best player in the league. Like, he's like the 7th best player in the NBA. So how can he win the MVP? And I'm like, yeah, do you forget all the times where the guy who won the MVP wasn't the best player in the league? It's happened over and over and over again. I'm just like, just look at it. Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Steve Nash, Karl Malone.
David Robinson. Was it? Didn't one year David Robinson win it, and then Olajuwon kicked his ass in the playoffs? I mean,
right.
So,
right.
Not that David Robinson didn't have a great year that year. He did, but just in that playoff series, Olajuwon was better.
Right. People win the regular season MVP award, which is what we need to start calling it, because people can't seem to figure this out.
Yeah.
It's a regular season award. It has nothing to do with what your team does in the playoffs afterward. So it just it's so ridiculous with this award. Now, look, I think I don't have a problem with Jokic getting it. I think last year you could have given it to Jokic, Embiid, or Giannis. Any of them. To me, that race was so tight in my eyes.
Yeah.
But and we'll see how it goes. I kind of think we should give one to Embiid eventually, because he hasn't missed as many games this year as he did last year, and he's been fantastic. I think it would be a shame for him to play this well for like 3 years in a row and not win it.
Yeah.
But that being said, I don't have a problem with Jokic winning it.
Yeah. I mean, well, to me with the MVP, it's always been like, obviously there's the valuable part, but statistically, you need to have a really good year. And I also feel like, and I've said this with like college football too, like, I think you need to have somewhat of a special year to win an MVP. Like, I think we need to look at it and go, wow, that, like LeBron's last MVP that he won with Miami in 2013. That was statistically, that was a ridiculous year. I mean, just the efficiency and the numbers that he put up that year. So you just go, wow, okay, yeah, you're the MVP, And some years you don't necessarily have that, but sometimes you got to look more into the advanced metrics, I guess. But yeah, so I mean, if you look at his numbers and then you kind of look at the impact he's had and you think, all right, well, that's pretty outstanding and that's pretty valuable, then I guess I got to give it to that guy. It's an award that gets voted on. So it's not like, and I think we've talked about this on previous podcasts. It's an award that's voted on. So it's not an objective thing. So to me, it's difficult to get that mad about it. Especially because it's a regular season award, and then the playoffs happen, and then people go, oh, well, and it's like, well, what happened in the playoffs? Like, I got to say, there's a lot of factors I need to take into account.
Yeah, it's kind of, and because the NBA has the biggest difference between the regular season and the playoffs, it causes a lot of issues. Everybody wants that. And so it's not going to be perfect. Rick Bucher was making the point that, well, Jokic shouldn't have won it the last 2 years. This is the year he should win it. His team's the number 1 seed. Like, he's actually been better this year than he was the last 2 years, but we're stuck in this place where we don't want to give him 3 in a row. So now we've got to try to correct past mistakes by giving the MVP to somebody else, which is basically the same thing kind of happened to Steve Nash. But see, I don't have a problem with the best player not winning the MVP.
Right.
I don't have a problem with it. Like, if you want to argue to me, like when Steve Nash won those 2, like nobody's saying like that. That's the thing I think people get misconstrued. Nobody was thinking Steve Nash was the best player in the NBA in those years. We all knew Kobe was better. We all knew Shaq was better. It wasn't a debate about how good a player Steve Nash was. It's that who's the most valuable.
Yeah, Dwayne Wade was having really good years too. But, I mean, again, that's a separate thing. But, I don't necessarily like the idea that this happens, but I don't like the idea that we screwed up in the past, so we're going to correct now. It's like they do that with the Oscars, Like Martin Scorsese wins for The Departed, which was a good movie. It wasn't Goodfellas. which he probably should have won for. So they're like, oh, well, we'll just give it to him for this. It's like, all right, fine. It becomes like a career achievement award rather than, to me, that maybe that cheapens the award a little bit. I don't know. Again, it's an award that's voted on. So I just think people get upset about this. And I'm just like, it's not like a, stat thing where you just go, well, you did this, so then you win the award.
Yeah, and going back to the Godfather, I mean, Al Pacino didn't win, for the Godfather, so he had to win for Scent of a Woman.
Yeah, which,
so it's
which is an okay movie, but it's a little. To be honest, if you talk, a lot of people will say that that's the beginning of Al Pacino becoming a caricature of himself, because every movie became he's going to do a speech at the end and he's going to yell.
Yeah. So yeah, I listen. In short, I think that we need to relax on the MVP, but I also enjoy it because the media is going to screw this up. They just will. Like you can see it coming. Like I know what's going to happen. It's going to be one of those years where somebody's going to win, and we're all going to go, yeah, but this other person was really a better player.
And yeah, I just thought of this other part. Okay, and Nick Wright has made this point, and it doesn't make sense unless you're looking at it in hindsight. Because he goes, who are the other players to win 3 in a row? It's like Kareem.
Yeah, Kareem, Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain.
Okay. Well, when Kareem did it, though, did he win the championship the third year or something, or was it like I can't?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, but here's my.
I don't think, and I don't think he didn't win it 3 in a row. He won 2, and then they gave it to somebody else the third year.
Oh, okay. Well, but basically, like Nick Wright's making the argument, he's like, well, you can't win it and then not win the championship or make the conference finals. Okay. I don't think the voters back then were thinking that way.
No.
Matter of fact, I don't think the voters were probably thinking that way up until the last maybe 10 or 15 years. Like, literally. So, if he's referring back to NBA history and going, well, this person didn't win it 3 in a row, and this person, it's like, they weren't thinking that way. I think they were just kind of going, who do we think is the most valuable player? And they didn't have advanced metrics back then either. So they're just they're going on some counting stats and then what they watched, So I don't think that that's the reason why a bunch of other players didn't win 3 in a row. Now granted, when Bird did it, I mean, he was appearing in the finals, right? But I don't think that's why obviously maybe that entered into it a little bit, but I just think they're watching, again, it's a regular season award. I just think they were watching him during the regular season and like, who are we going to give this award to? Well, we got to give it to this guy because I've watched him play and then I look at his stats and he's really good. So.
Yeah. We can't give the MVP out and then we're going to watch how they do in the postseason and then judge them based on that. And it's kind of, it's kind of ridiculous. And I think I agree with Bill Simmons. I think there should be a playoffs MVP. Not just a regular season MVP and a finals MVP. I think there should be, I think there should be a way to recognize that.
Well, and just to give you a thing about, and this is why, again, sometimes people act like the world started, 20 years ago and they don't remember how things were before that. But, I remember I'm switching sports here, but I remember watching football in the 90s. And, if you're watching a Broncos game, they'd be like, well, John Elway has 48 or whatever it was, career fourth quarter comebacks. Like, he's a really clutch quarterback. He hadn't won the Super Bowl yet. He'd lost 3 times in the Super Bowl. And the last time he'd lost in the Super Bowl, they got their asses kicked. But they still said he's a clutch quarterback. Matter of fact, they said some of that stuff about Marino because he had a bunch of regular season comebacks, even though he didn't have a Super Bowl. So I just feel like people need to understand that this obsession with counting rings and focusing so much on playoff success is a relatively new phenomenon. I don't think that was the case from what I remember.
I think this is my theory. I don't know if this is true, but I think it started in the late 90s when sports radio started to go national.
Yes.
Because up until then, it was local for the most part. There weren't a whole lot of national sports radio shows, and that's kind of when it started. The national shows kind of kicked it off. And then in the last 10 years, they've come out with all the TV shows that
well,
are basically
there's social
a replacement.
Media too. There's Twitter and
Right.
Instagram or whatever. That ratcheted it up even more.
Right, but then the shows, they started making TV shows.
Well-
They started putting simulcasting people's radio shows on TV, right? They started
Yeah.
doing that in the 2000s, right? And then they started taking the shows that would have been what sports radio is and making it into a show, like First Take and Undisputed and all of that. Those things started happening where everything became a debate show, which was following the political media, right? Because everything was people screaming at each other then. So that followed it. And now it's hot take central. So that's I think when it started, which is just what an advantage Michael Jordan gets, because he really didn't have to deal with the national sports radio stuff at all. And then he didn't have to deal with social media. So he gets to just kind of fly by without people going, you know what I mean? Well, he needs to win another one. You know what I mean? There was nobody really doing that then.
I mean, he would have got, like, think about it if now he had gone and played baseball and then came back and then lost in the second round to Orlando. He would have gotten crushed. They would have been like, oh my God, maybe he isn't as good as we thought. Like, literally, it would just, the ridiculousness would have just been off the charts. I mean,
when should the Bulls trade him? You know, he should be traded. That's what would have happened. It would have been, you know what? We got to get him out of here. This guy needs to be traded. He's not good anymore. That's what it would have been. So it would have been, oh my God. Yeah. So yeah, that's crazy, this world that we live in now. But you know, it's what makes it fun that now we can make fun of these people for how insane they are.
Again, I just think it's important to point out it wasn't always this way. Okay.
Right.
So that's why when younger people, it's like, you guys need to understand, like, if you're watching any of these shows or listening to stuff and people are saying different things, it's like, well, this is sort of a new idea of how to approach some of these topics. And it's new and it's not necessarily accurate or fair or reasonable. Like, literally, some of these takes are just, like, ridiculous. So it's just, again, that's why we have the name of the podcast. But yeah, it is an interesting thing to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, anyone acting like we never debated players, how good players were, you know, against each other until recently. No, we did this all of the time. Like this was the discussion in the 90s, right? It's like Steve Young or Troy Aikman. You know, these are the kinds of things that Jim Kelly or Dan Marino, like these are things that we were debating all the time. We just didn't have a TV show or social media where it was debated openly between everybody.
Yeah. Like you could have a debate like, who's a better running back, Emmitt Smith or Barry Sanders? And you go, well, Barry Sanders is just unbelievable. It's like, he doesn't win in the playoffs. Yeah, but that's because Emmitt Smith has, the greatest offensive line we've ever seen. Just all that kind of stuff. But it would be more like people at a bar talking to each other, right? And then now it gets amplified, so now everyone thinks that, like, well, this is how everybody thinks. And it's not necessarily, I mean, I guess some people do think that way, but it's not, it wasn't ratcheted up as much as it is now.
This is a good one that I heard this week. So I'm listening to the Lebitard show on Friday, and Dan was not on, but they had Stu Gatz on. And I think he took this from First Take, but he was debating like who's a better shooter. It was like JJ Redick or Larry Bird. Like, who would you take? He's like, you have one shot, for your life. Who would you give it to, Larry Bird or JJ Redick? And it just made me laugh because he's like, it's Larry Bird. There's no question about it. I don't understand how you could say otherwise. Larry Bird's the greatest clutch shooter of all time. And I'm just like, actually, no, he's not. Larry Bird shot maybe 2 or 3 3-pointers a game, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they did back then. They really didn't shoot. Larry Bird just shot threes so he could give you the middle finger when he was done. Like, this was not, I'm going to just, no, I'm sorry. Watch the shots that JJ Redick and Kyle Korver and those guys take and make now. Nobody in the 80s was making shots like that. And by the way, nor would they. Like, if you got to run full speed, come off a pick, and you can't stop, you come to just a barely stop just, to keep your legs still for a second and then shoot the ball. Like listen, I'm I'm not debating that if Larry Bird played today, he wouldn't be a great shooter. Of course he would, because he would have worked on it. It would have been part of his routine. But he didn't. That wasn't how the game was played back then. So no, Larry Bird can't shoot anywhere near as well as a guy on every single NBA team can nowadays. Duncan Robinson is probably a better shooter than Larry Bird. I know, I'm not saying Duncan Robinson is a better player than Larry Bird is. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying if you took 1986 Larry Bird, he's not making threes the way these guys make threes now.
Right.
So just an example of how, we memorialize and, bring up our nostalgia when it comes to the past, but it blinds us from actually seeing what's going on now.
Yeah.
So I tried to come up with some predictions. I don't think I did very well, but I'm gonna throw them out there anyway. So I just tried to come up with some predictions kind of for the rest of the year, I don't know. I tried to be bold, but I also want to be right at the same time. Yeah. So for the rest of the NBA season, this is what I put down. Like I've been waving the flag for the Denver Nuggets. Well, then I gotta be aggressive. Gotta put my balls out there. Denver is going to the NBA Finals.
Okay.
So I think, listen, there are some teams that aren't great matchups for them, but I think Denver knows how to play against the Clippers. I think I don't think Golden State is anywhere near what they were last year, and I feel like Denver is rolling.
Yeah, the Clippers, for whatever reason, they decided to get Russell Westbrook, and I feel like that could fuck things up somehow. We'll see.
All right, so that's good. So yeah, let's talk about that. Look, I don't think it's going to matter.
Hopefully it doesn't, but I feel like some people were trying to sell us on that with the Lakers, and I don't. Again, like you were saying last week, I'm not saying Russell Westbrook was the source of all their problems. Obviously not. But I mean, it was a problem.
Yeah, right. But the Clippers have a much better, deeper roster.
Right.
And here's my thing. Like, yeah, all right, regular season, whatever. But when they get into the playoffs and we're talking about matchups, like Tyronn Lue he plays matchups. Like if he doesn't like the matchup, you're not playing. So I don't think it's going to matter. I think he's going to have Russell Westbrook on the bench. I don't think he's going to play, anywhere near as much as people think he is. I think, he might play a little bit in the regular season because they'll have guys in and out and there'll be minutes available. But I think once you get into the playoffs, so let's just write two things that Russell Westbrook can't do. He can't shoot. He doesn't play good defense. Two things that you have to have in the playoffs, right? But in this idea that Russell Westbrook's going to blow up the locker room, I don't know about that. Like, to me, you kind of have to matter if you're going to blow up the locker room, and he'll have been there like 5 minutes. Like,
yeah.
I get why people, have takes on it, but I think it's irrelevant. I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think it's going to have anything to do with whether that team succeeds or not.
Right. Yeah.
We've been talking about this, I feel like, the past couple times, but the Lakers are not going to make it into the top 8. I leave the door open that they make the play-in. That might happen.
But they won't actually be in the rest of the playoffs.
Right. I don't think they're not going to be in a playoff series. I don't think it's happening. I know everybody's trying to sell me on, they could be trouble. And Magic Johnson came out and said this team's going to be really dangerous in the playoff, or you don't want to play this team in the playoffs. Okay.
That's one of the takes I can't stand anymore. I hate that take. Oh, you don't want to play these guys in the playoffs. It's like, oh, really? Because we wanted to play them in the regular season. So,
Yeah, I think this Laker team, there's no way, no how. I don't think you're going to get consistent good games from Anthony Davis. Maybe you'll get 1 or 2 in a series. I don't think you're going to get it every game. And the rest of their roster, I just think it's going to be too hit and miss. And if you're talking to me about they're going to play Denver in the first round, yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, first of all, they're playing Dallas right now. Dallas is up. There's 2:53 left in the fourth quarter. Dallas is up 101-99. I mean, what you have to understand here is the Lakers are now like 13th in the West. Okay, so when you're going throughout an NBA regular season, it's not like you overreact to every loss. But when there's only like 20 games left, you don't have margin for error. So, you could have a game where you miss a shot or something at the end and you lose the game. Okay, well, that's a game you're not going to get back. And it's like you guys need to win a lot more games over the next few weeks just to be able to get to the 10 seed. Okay? So now granted, there's still only if they were just to get back to 500, like that would serve them pretty well in terms of getting into the play-in tournament, but okay, or you guys got to keep winning games now. You can't. There's no margin for error, really.
Not only that, and right now, and the Warriors may end up in the play-in. Every bit of news that comes out about Steph Curry's injury, it's we're going to reevaluate after this. We're going to reevaluate after that. This is going to end up being longer than people think it is. And so, if the Warriors are in the play-in, they're beating the Lakers. I know I haven't been thrilled with the way the Warriors have played this season. They're still going to beat the Lakers.
Yeah.
And, on that note, I'm putting it out there. The Warriors are going to lose in the first round.
Okay.
I think they're going to be in the 6, 7, 8 range. And if that's the case, and listen, we've done the numbers on this. In the last 28 years, no team has won the championship that's not a top 3 seed. And the Warriors are so bad. The Warriors are entering the area where they're so bad on defense. Nobody that's that bad on defense has ever made the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
That's the territory that we're in with the Warriors. I don't think people realize it. This is where they are. Steph Curry being injured has nothing to do with it. They were a 500 team before that. So yeah. I'm not buying it. I'm just completely out on it. I know everybody's going to try to say, oh, really? Look out for them. Now, a lot of these predictions, if you get to play Sacramento, maybe I'll be wrong. I'm just going to put that out there. That's be the one caveat. If the Warriors get to play Sacramento in the first round, all right, fine. I mean, what do you want me to do about that?
Yeah.
De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis are probably not going to beat the Warriors. Just, my last NBA prediction, I put the Pelicans will win a playoff series. Okay. I know that's kind of ridiculous. They couldn't win one last year. I think they'll find a way to win one this year.
Yeah.
I don't feel great. I don't feel great about it because Zion probably be injured at some point. But if he's playing, I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. Yeah, Giannis. So he injured his wrist and then he injured his knee.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but they've won 14 in a row.
Yeah.
So, if they don't get the 1 seed, they're going to be the 2 seed. It's going to be.
That's fine. It's just you got to make sure you need Giannis, Drew Holiday, and Middleton, playing well to get through to do as well as that team could do. So. All
right. So, and then I figured, all right, we'll throw out a couple NFL things. And I tried to think, all right, where are the quarterbacks going to go? I don't feel comfortable making any prediction on Aaron Rodgers because that thing is such a mess.
I will. He's going to be in Green Bay next year.
Okay.
I could be totally wrong, but I think he's going to be in Green Bay next year. I understand, the team's tired of it, whatever. You haven't been tired of it the last several years? Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting. So I just didn't want to touch that because I feel like if Rodgers wants to go to the Jets, I think he'll end up on the Jets, but I don't know. I don't know what the deal is.
Yeah, Derek Carr. I don't know. I'm not going to.
I think Derek Carr is going to go to the Panthers. I do. That's my prediction. Is Derek Carr goes to the Panthers and they win the division.
That could happen. I wouldn't be shocked at all by that. He might go to somewhere we don't really expect. I don't know. We'll see.
I also think the Panthers owner is really aggressive. I think he'll have no problem signing Derek Carr up for 3 or 4 years or whatever it is. I know. I'm listen. This is going to make me a hater. I know everybody's going to think I'm a hater. I think the Dolphins are going to have a losing record next year.
Yes, I agree. I said 7-10 this year. I ended up being wrong. They finished 9-8, but really I was pretty close because I was off by hell, they almost lost to the Jets at the end of the year. I think I'm gonna pick them to be. I'm going to go 8-9. I was going to say 7-10 again. I'm going to go 8-9. But yeah, I just don't I think the defense will be better because Vic Fangio is a defensive coordinator. But I just now again, let's see, free agency hasn't started yet. There's more they can do to shore up the offensive line. So we'll see. But even then, I'm like, unless they're going to be really good running the ball, Tua's going to get hurt again. He's going to miss games. And in the biggest games, when you really need him to play well, I just don't think he's going to play that well, which he hasn't done in the NFL. So
yeah, I was looking over the schedule. I mean, he played well in about 4 games. He played 12 games. He played well in about 4. He played average in about 4, and he was bad in about 4. Yeah. So it's like, what do we have? Like, what are we getting here? Like, we have no idea what this is. Like, is he going to be which quarterback are we going to get?
Yeah, I think. Well, and I think I made this prediction before. They're going to pick up the 5th-year option, which they have till May, and it's not like it's a ridiculous thing. It's not like they're giving him some 4-year extension, but I think basically, I feel like this is sort of a make or break year for him on the Dolphins, because if he can't really first of all, if he can't stay healthy, that can supersede everything, and they can just be like, we need to move on. We're not going to offer him an extension. But yeah, if they, because their roster, in some ways, you could say their roster is kind of loaded in terms of the running backs they have, the receivers they have. I think their defense, like I said, I think their defense is going to be better. They have some playmakers there, and I think Vic Fangio is going to make a big difference. Their secondary is kind of a mess now because Byron Jones, they're probably going to cut him. And he didn't even play last year, really. Xavier Howard, maybe he's declining a little bit. But no, they have a lot of talent on the roster. So I just feel like it reaches a point where you just go, as an organization, you go, we got all this stuff, and we can barely finish at 500. Like, that's going to be kind of, to me, that's kind of maybe there's a breaking point there. But again, he could play kind of whatever, and they could finish like at 500 or right around there, and they could give him an extension. It won't be for $45 million a year. Maybe it's like 35, something like that, which that seems to be kind of at 30, 35. That seems to be a going rate just to start off. But, so I'm going to predict that he gets the 5th-year extension. Beyond that, I don't know, because part of me says they're not going to do this, but then another part of me says they've invested so much in him already that maybe they can convince themselves that, oh, well, we'll just, we'll roll with this. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm surprised how quickly you agreed with me, but hey, that's pretty cool. It's sad that we're the Dolphins fans and we're like, yeah, I agree with you. The Dolphins need to go all in. Like I don't understand.
Well, they kind of have been. They traded 5 draft picks for Tyreek Hill. They went and got all those running backs. They got Teron Armstead, and I think they're kind of like signing all these defensive players that they already have. So yeah, they sort of have, it's just
except for quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just don't understand that. Like, let's like go all in, go get Derek Carr. Like, I don't understand what they're doing.
The other thing is that, like, because Tua's probably going to make, I don't know, I've seen it maybe 23, 25 million this year. I think something like that.
The fifth year.
Oh, okay, all right. So yeah, it's not like it's signing Derek Carr would be totally not doable. You may need to, maybe there's a guy or two that you need to say goodbye to, but you could really fit that in there because Derek Carr is going to make what? 35? Is he going to make 40?
Like
I don't
that,
know.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you can kind of structure that, how you want. So yeah, they could potentially do that, and that would be an upgrade. But
yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Like you're going all in, but you're hoping this quarterback who just consistently gets injured is going to lead you somewhere. It's just like, what are you doing? Like I don't, I get you're being aggressive so far. Why won't you continue? Then keep it up. Like that's what I don't understand. If you're going to go all in, then go all in. Don't half-ass it. Don't be just kind of like, all right, we'll leave this guy. It's like, I don't know what you're doing. You won the same number of games with Brian Flores as you did with Mike McDaniel. You put all this, like we've been saying it, you put all this stuff into this team. You weren't any better.
Yeah.
Yeah, you scored more points.
With Tua's stats, like it's funny. You look at Tua's stats, and for the people who think that he's just great or whatever, I'm like, okay, well, with all that talent he had around him, he threw 24 touchdowns. Okay, that's it. Now that's better than 16, which he threw the year before. But it's not like he threw like 35 touchdowns or something and had 4,000 yards passing. And people are like, oh, well, he got hurt. Yeah, he gets hurt. So in order for him to have bigger numbers in the games that he does play, he's going to have to play better. So,
Yeah, so anyway, we could go all day on that. My one prediction, I thought about college football a lot, but, I mean, my one great prediction for college football is I think LSU is going to be in the playoff. They probably, I think they win the SEC championship and they go to the playoff.
Yeah, that's a pretty good. So this is the last year of the 14 playoff. So
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right,
I think this is the only.
I'm pretty down with that. I mean,
they're one of the only teams in the SEC that's returning their quarterback. I think it's them and Ole Miss.
That's a big deal.
And I feel like but the thing is, it's one of those things that could go completely wrong because they have to play Florida State the first game again in Orlando. So I could be completely wrong the first week of the season because Florida State's really good. So
yeah,
we'll see how it goes. But I have a feeling LSU will try to exact their revenge. And if they get anywhere near, if they improve even a little bit from last year's team, they're going to be loaded.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was going to say USC goes to the playoff, but I didn't feel like that was much of a prediction. I feel like everybody's going to say that.
If their defense is better, they should. I mean, Caleb Williams is coming back, so yeah, you would think, but we'll see.
So yeah, we'll think more about. Obviously, I have more predictions for the football stuff later, but and then the NBA will definitely lay down some stuff when the playoffs come around. So
yeah, when we actually see like Kevin Durant play on Phoenix, that'd be kind of nice. Hopefully that's soon. I don't know. I mean, you see him on the bench. I don't know what. I guess it's a knee injury, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the deal. So, so thanks for joining us. We kind of meandered around to a bunch of different topics, but I find these shows are the most fun when you really don't have necessarily a plan and you can just kind of throw stuff out there. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and see everybody next week.